Chapter 36 Safe Returns. Marvin's homecoming was a dramatic affair full of exclamations and recriminations, joyous embraces, and stern I told you so's. When James finally lowered him to the bottom of the dark cupboard and he crawled through the plaster wall into his own living room, he was instantly subsumed in a throng of anxious kinfolk who extended dozens of legs to pat his shell and chuck him under the chin. "Marvin!" Mama and Papa cried simultaneously, rushing over to him. They couldn't stop hugging him, clearly overcome with guilt at having actually given permission for the last, most dangerous outing. "My boy, we thought you were done for," Uncle Albert boomed. "This business of leaving home to help the humans has gone entirely too far." "Indeed it has," chimed in Marvin's grandmother. "Have you learned nothing from the experiences of your elders, dear boy? You must stop dabbling in human affairs. No good will come of it." Elaine's eyes were huge. "Oh, Marvin, you don't know how scared we've all been," she cried. "Why, I just knew the most terrible thing had happened to you. When I heard you'd gone back to the museum again, I said, he'll end up drowned in the bottle of ink." Now Elaine, Aunt Edith interrupted. Marvin thought of Elaine in the turtle tank and muttered under his breath, "You know what a good swimmer I am." But mostly he accepted their concerned scolding without complaint. He was beginning to understand that some of the most irritating things his family did stemmed from the depth of their love, and suddenly it felt wonderful to be worried about and fussed over, to be reclaimed by their messy closeness. Marvin remembered his lonely journey with fortitude when he thought that he might never see Mama and Papa and the relatives again. He realized that this was exactly what he had pined for, the thick web of affection that bound them all together. In some fundamental way, whatever terrible or wonderful thing happened to him always seemed to have happened to them as well. And so it was that Marvin was obliged to spend the evening telling all about his adventures, every exciting and horrifying detail about the burglary, the dark trip through the city with fortitude, the discovery of the 3 other virtue drawings, the shocking revelation that Denny himself had masterminded the heists. In between the myriad questions and discussions this prompted, Mama and Aunt Edith kept replenishing the table with platters of food, potato peelings, flakes of tuna fish, an orange rind, and crumbs of toast spread with a truly delicious rhubarb jelly, so that by midnight everyone was well stuffed and ready for a nap. "You need to rest, Marvin," Mama said decisively. "All this excitement is too much for you." "I'm pretty tired," Marvin admitted. Elaine followed him into his room. "You're so lucky," she told him, careful to lower her voice so that the grown-ups wouldn't hear. Marvin nodded. "I know. I thought I might never be back here again." "I don't mean that," she said dismissively. "I mean lucky you got out of the apartment again. You've gotten to see the world." Marvin thought about that. He had seen the world. It had been scary at times, but also exhilarating. Who could have imagined it would be such a complicated, interesting place? Elaine was right. He was lucky. When you saw different parts of the world, you saw different parts of yourself. And when you stayed home, where it was safe, those parts of yourself also stayed hidden. It wasn't until late the next day that Marvin had a chance to visit James again. He made his way to James's bedroom and found him hunched over his desk, drawing with his ink set. The pictures looked nothing like Marvin's. The strokes were fat and unsteady. The things he drew had an abstract, disjointed look, an angular, foreshortened chair, the thick, pronged branches of the tree outside the window. James was concentrating so hard he didn't see Marvin crawl to the edge of the paper and stand there, watching. When the boy finally noticed him, he gasped in delight and sheepishly set down his pen. "Hey," he said, "little guy, I never know when you're going to show up. We have to figure out a way to reach each other, you know. Like if I have a special message for you, maybe I can leave something in the cupboard so you know to come here. Or if you really need me, you can do the same thing." He thought for a minute. "Something small, I know." He tore off a corner of the paper he was drawing on and made an ink X on it. "We'll put this in the kitchen cupboard behind the wastebasket, right by your house, We'll leave it face down unless one of us needs the other. Then we'll turn it over, and if it's turned over, we'll meet here at my desk in the afternoon. Okay? Let's say 4 o'clock because I'm always home from school by then." James nodded emphatically, pleased with himself. Marvin smiled up at him. They might not be able to talk to each other, but there was so many other ways to say what they meant. James pointed at his picture. "Look what I'm making. I'll never be as good as you are, but I like it. It's fun." He lowered his finger and Marvin climbed onto it. "And guess what? I have so much to tell you. I had to go to that police station. There was a jail and everything, and I talked to the FBI. His face clouded momentarily. "I don't think they believed me exactly when I said how I found the drawings. But Christina kind of took over and told them about Denny, and then they let me come home." James leaned closer to Marvin, lowering his voice. "The FBI can't find Denny anywhere. When they got to the apartment, he'd cleaned out all his stuff. He may have left the country. They think he went to Germany. Christina keeps calling his cell phone and he doesn't answer." James sighed. "I know what he did was wrong and everything, but I still kind of hope he doesn't get caught." Then he laughed suddenly. "But guess what? The drawings are all over the news. They're not saying how they were found, but they've had all these experts look at them already, and it's such a big deal. Everyone on TV is so excited. They had an interview with one of the German guys from the museum where the other two were stolen, and he kept saying something like, 'Wunderbar, wunderbar.' My dad says that means wonderful." Marvin thought it must be a dream come true for the museum people to have all 4 of Durer's long-lost virtues returned in one fell swoop. James lifted Marvin close to his face, grinning at him, "And it's all because of us. Well, you mostly, but I helped. And Christina says that I've gotten permission to put all the drawings in some special exhibit before they have to send them back. So they hung them this morning, and Dad just called and he says the lines for the museum are around the block. We're going to go, all of us, this afternoon. Isn't that great?" James let out a long breath. "So you have to come too, of course. You're like a real life hero." He set Marvin down, looking at him proudly. "Nobody will ever know, but you are." That's okay, Marvin thought. You know. As scary as it had been at times, the whole adventure had been something to share with James. It was a secret kept between them.